I watched her small hand slip from mine for the last time, and in that moment, the world went silent. Then, my phone buzzed. We need Lily's inheritance. Come to the house. They hadn't visited her. They hadn't cared. And now, they wanted everything she left behind. But what I discovered next was far worse than greed. It was a plan that could destroy me too. The hospital room smelled faintly of antiseptic, a scent that had become both familiar and suffocating over the past 6 months. Lily's small chest rose and fell under the thin white blanket, tubes snaking from her tiny body to machines that monitored every heartbeat. I pressed my hand against hers, trying to memorize the warmth, the softness, the stubborn resilience in the grip of her little fingers. She was 6, yet she carried herself with a bravery that made me feel small. When the doctors first diagnosed leukemia, the world had tilted, and I had been thrust into a battle I never wanted to fight. The needles, the transfusions, the medications with names I could barely pronounce, they became our daily rhythm, a dance of survival and hope. Daniel had been supportive, flying back and forth for work, but it was me, mostly, by her side. The quiet, sleepless nights, the constant vigilance, it was mine alone. My parents, Margaret and Thomas, and my sister, Caroline, were absent. They claimed work, obligations, or fatigue, but in truth, I realized they simply didn't want to see the reality of a sick child. And yet, the first warning signs of their true intentions came in whispers. Late-night texts from my mother, masked as concern, "Are you handling the trust okay?" Caroline's advice slipped in casually, questions about investments and beneficiaries. I ignored them, telling myself there was no time to worry about money. Lily's life came first. She lay in bed, her eyes closed, a small hand clutching a worn-out stuffed rabbit. I kissed her forehead and whispered, "Mommy's here, always." She stirred, a faint smile crossing her lips. "I'm okay," she said, voice barely a whisper. "Don't worry about me." But I did worry. Every second, every heartbeat, every lab result was a weight pressing against my chest. And yet, even in the midst of exhaustion, I tried to smile at her courage, her determination to be normal, to laugh, to dream. She had dreams of becoming a veterinarian, of saving animals no one else could. And I promised her I'd do everything in my power to see her reach them. Then came the day that changed everything. A text from Margaret, "We need to talk about Lily's inheritance. Come to the house tomorrow." I stared at the message in disbelief. They hadn't visited her once in the last 6 months. They hadn't attended her consultations, hadn't sat through the nights of panic with me. And now, suddenly, they wanted her money. The betrayal cut deeper than the diagnosis ever could. I could feel my hands trembling as I held the phone, the little text glowing like a neon warning in the dark. Angela, our neighbor and quiet guardian angel, had been our constant presence through it all. She had delivered meals, kept me company during hospital stays, and never once treated Lily's illness as an inconvenience. I remember Angela's gentle voice that first day I confided in her, "Emily, you're doing everything a mother can. Don't let anyone make you doubt that." And yet, here I was, doubting my own judgment, haunted by the sudden, calculated intrusion of my family. That night, I walked the empty corridors of the hospital, Lily sleeping in the bed behind me. I tried to think of a reason, any reason, why Margaret and Caroline would reach out now. But the truth settled in like a shadow, they didn't care about her life. They cared about the money she would leave behind. I thought of the trust Daniel had set up, a $500,000 fund for her education and future. He had been meticulous, ensuring that her legacy was protected. But now, I realized, protection wasn't just legal, it was personal. I had to be vigilant, I had to understand the true intentions of the people who had abandoned us when we needed them most. I looked at Lily's sleeping face, her tiny chest rising and falling in fragile rhythm. "I'll protect you," I whispered. "Whatever it takes." I didn't know yet what dangers lay ahead, what manipulations they had prepared, or how far they would go. All I knew was that I could not allow them to take what was hers, what Daniel had entrusted to us, what Lily deserved. And so, as the night settled over the city, I made a silent vow, I would uncover the truth. I would confront the betrayal. I would fight for her memory, for the life she deserved, even if it meant standing against my own family. Because some battles, I realized, are not just about survival, they are about justice, about love, about not letting the people who abandoned you define the legacy of those you cherish most. The next morning, I walked into their house, my hands gripping the folder Daniel had prepared. The air smelled faintly of polished wood and perfume, an attempt to disguise tension, but I could feel it in every corner. Caroline sat primly on the cream sofa, heels clicking against the floor. Margaret's pearls gleamed under the chandelier, Thomas's posture rigid with control. They didn't ask about Lily. They didn't apologize. Instead, they slid a folder across the coffee table, eyes sharp, smiles rehearsed. "We need to reallocate the trust," Margaret said, her voice a soft weapon. I stared at her, disbelief mingling with anger. "Why?" "You're grieving, Emily. You're not in a position to manage such a large sum," Caroline added, her tone honeyed, practiced. Every instinct screamed at me, this wasn't help. It was a calculated move, a test of control. The pieces clicked into place, the absence during Lily's illness, the texts about the trust, the careful timing. They had been planning this for months. I noticed a blueprint peeking from under the folder. My breath caught. It was for Caroline's new home, $150,000 kitchen, designer furniture, a backyard pool. They hadn't cared about Lily's life, but suddenly, they needed her money to fund a lavish lifestyle. I excused myself, heart hammering, and left the room with quiet determination. Angela's words echoed in my mind, "You are not alone, Emily. You will protect her legacy." 2 days later, I sat in the polished office of Richard Donovan, the trust attorney Daniel had recommended. The office smelled of leather and certainty, a place where problems became solvable equations. I laid out every document, every suspicious call, every late-night text. Richard adjusted his glasses and studied the evidence. They knew about the trust before Lily's illness worsened. They were preparing to act if the worst happened. But legally, they have no ground. A flicker of hope sparked, but caution remained. They might try manipulation, claiming I was too grief-stricken to handle the funds. I had to prepare, collect proof, and control the narrative. Richard suggested a public meeting, neutral ground, to prevent theatrics. Riverside Coffee became our battlefield. I placed a manila envelope in front of me, texts, emails, financial records. Every piece of evidence strengthened my position. When they arrived, Caroline's heels clicked against the floor as she approached, confidence radiating. Margaret's calm demeanor was deceptive, her eyes calculating. I could feel the tension in the air, an invisible tug-of-war of power and control. "Emily, we're just trying to help you manage this," Margaret began. I held up the folder. "These are my records. These are your calls, your inquiries. I know what you've been planning." Caroline faltered for a split second, the first crack in her carefully constructed mask. The public setting kept her from reacting aggressively, but I could see the calculation in her eyes. They had underestimated me, underestimated my resolve. Richard leaned in. "Everything here is documented. If they attempt to manipulate or intimidate you, it will be on record. You are legally protected." I exhaled, a mixture of relief and resolve. The first step had been taken. But I knew this battle was far from over. The trust was safe, yes, but the darkness of their greed, the manipulations, the lies, they would not stop here. And then came the twist I hadn't anticipated, a stack of emails from Caroline's fiancé, Mark, detailing a plan to leverage Lily's trust to cover debts from a failed business. The engagement party, the smiling photos, they had been a diversion, a carefully staged scene to distract me while they plotted behind closed doors. My stomach churned with anger. It wasn't just greed, it was deception, collusion, betrayal beyond anything I had imagined. My family, the people I had once trusted, had been scheming while my daughter fought for her life. Richard's voice cut through the spiral of thoughts. you have everything you need to stop them. The law is on your side, and so are your allies. I thought of Angela, of Daniel, of the quiet support I had been given. I wasn't alone. And for the first time in weeks, I felt a measure of control. The public meeting ended with my family leaving, their composure intact but their plans disrupted. I watched them go, knowing they would regroup, rethink, and try again. But I had seen their hand, and now, I could anticipate their moves. As I left Riverside Coffee, clutching the folder, I realized this was only the beginning. Lily's life had ended, but her legacy, the future Daniel and I had fought to secure, was now a battlefield. And I would fight, tooth and nail, to protect it. Because some legacies, some memories, are too precious to be stolen, even by the people who should have loved us the most. The days after the Riverside Coffee confrontation were heavy with quiet dread. My phone buzzed constantly, but I didn't answer. Every call felt like a trap, every message a potential ambush. Caroline and her fiancé, Mark, had underestimated me, but now, I knew they were ruthless, willing to manipulate, threaten, and lie to get what they wanted. I began digging deeper. Late nights became research sessions, trust law, inheritance rights, guardianship laws. I reviewed every text, every email, every phone call. And then I found it, a series of encrypted emails between Caroline and a financial advisor I didn't know existed. They outlined a plan to redirect Lily's inheritance into a joint account controlled by Caroline and Mark, bypassing me entirely. My stomach twisted. They had waited for Lily's illness to reach its peak, for grief to weaken my resolve, and then moved with surgical precision. It wasn't just about money, they had engineered a scenario to exploit my vulnerability. I needed allies. Angela was my first call. Her voice, calm and steady, reminded me that I wasn't alone. You have evidence, Emily. You have the truth. Don't let them intimidate you. You fight for her memory. Even Daniel, thousands of miles away, strategized with me. He reminded me of the protective clauses he had built into the trust, the multiple layers of legal safeguard. But knowing the law was one thing, outmaneuvering people who had known me my whole life, people who knew my fears and weaknesses, was another. Then came the confrontation I had dreaded, a surprise visit from Caroline at my apartment. Her smile was sharp, polite, but her eyes glimmered with menace. Emily, you really should reconsider. The stress isn't good for you, she said, voice sweet but venomous. I held my ground. I'm not reconsidering anything. Lily's legacy isn't for you to take. Her hand twitched toward her purse, almost imperceptible, and my instincts screamed danger. She was testing me, looking for a crack. But I didn't flinch. I had prepared for this moment, every defensive move rehearsed. Then came the revelation that froze me. Mark had secretly contacted a loan officer, attempting to secure a mortgage against Lily's trust before she even passed. They weren't just greedy, they were reckless, willing to gamble with her inheritance for their own gain. And my family, those who should have loved and supported us, were complicit. I documented everything. Texts, emails, records of suspicious calls, even the faintest indications of their financial maneuvers. This wasn't just evidence for legal proceedings, it was proof of intent, proof of betrayal, proof that my family had abandoned us in our most vulnerable moments. Angela helped me set up a secure backup of every document. This is your shield, she said. And your sword. I realized then that the fight wasn't just for money, it was for justice, for the truth, for the memory of the daughter I had lost. The psychological tension reached its peak when I confronted my parents again, this time over a video call recorded for legal purposes. Margaret's tone was dripping with false sympathy. We're just trying to protect you, Emily. You've been too emotional to make the right decisions. Thomas added, with a practiced calm, we only want what's best for the family. You're exhausted, grieving. You need guidance. I held up the evidence. Every call, every text, every plan, they couldn't deny it. And for the first time, I saw fear flicker across their faces. The mask of control was cracking. But then came the darkest twist. Buried in the documents from Caroline and Mark was a list of accomplices, family friends, a financial advisor, even a lawyer who had been quietly nudging them in the right direction. The betrayal went deeper than I imagined. This wasn't just greed, it was collusion, a network working to manipulate me while pretending to grieve. My heart pounded, a mix of rage and clarity. I realized the next confrontation had to be decisive. Public meetings, private arguments, they wouldn't suffice. I needed control of the environment, witnesses, legal support, and undeniable proof. That night, I sat with Angela, reviewing every document. "This is bigger than I thought," I said quietly, voice shaking. "They've built a web around me. But I see the threads now. I can untangle it." She nodded. "And you will. For her. For you. No one can take her legacy if you stay vigilant." I felt a cold clarity settle over me. I wasn't just grieving anymore. I was fighting. And this battle was about more than money, it was about exposing every lie, every betrayal, every calculated move my family had made while pretending to care. Because some betrayals run deeper than blood, and some truths demand confrontation, even if it shatters the fragile illusion of family. I knew then that the final showdown was coming. Every piece of evidence, every carefully documented moment, every ounce of resolve would matter. I wouldn't just defend Lily's inheritance, I would reveal the darkness my family had hidden for years. And I would emerge unbroken. The day of the final confrontation arrived. I chose the conference room at Richard Donovan's office, a neutral space, witnesses present, every document ready, every legal safeguard in place. I wasn't just walking into a room with my family. I was walking into a storm I had meticulously prepared for. Caroline arrived first, heels clicking, a practiced smile masking the tension in her eyes. Margaret and Thomas followed, their faces calm but taut, as if they had rehearsed the exact expressions of sympathy and concern. Mark lingered behind, a smirk barely hidden. But I felt nothing of fear. Only clarity. Richard opened the meeting. "We're here to discuss the Lily Walker Trust. I suggest we proceed with all parties calm, and every statement recorded." I placed the manila envelope on the table, sliding it toward the center. Every text, email, call record, and hidden financial plan was visible to them now. No more whispers. No more shadows. Margaret's voice wavered first. "Emily, these accusations, they're exaggerated. We only wanted to help you manage the funds." I held up a folder of encrypted emails. "Help? Planning behind my back, contacting financial advisors, diverting funds before my daughter even passed, is that help?" Caroline's smile faltered. She tried to interject, but Richard's firm gaze silenced her. "This is documented evidence. Every attempt to manipulate or coerce is on record." Thomas leaned forward, a flash of anger crossing his face. "You're making this personal. You're twisting intentions." I shook my head, feeling the power of truth settle in my chest. "Intentions? You abandoned my daughter when she needed you most. You attended a lavish engagement party while she lay in a hospital bed. That was your intention." Mark shifted uneasily. The carefully constructed web of deception began to unravel. Emails, financial statements, and witnesses exposed the depth of their collusion. Friends, advisors, even a lawyer, everyone who had been quietly manipulating events, were revealed. For the first time, I saw the panic behind their composed masks. Their plan had failed, meticulously dismantled by evidence and preparation. Richard leaned toward me, quietly, as if only I could hear, "Everything is in order. Legally, they have no claim. You've done everything right." I felt a surge of relief, tempered by the lingering ache of betrayal. This wasn't about victory anymore, it was about honoring Lily's memory, preserving her legacy, and confronting the truth. Caroline finally spoke, voice tight. We just wanted what we thought was best." I looked at her, seeing the desperation that had driven her to deceit, but not excusing it. What you wanted was convenience, not care. Lily deserved better, and so did I. Margaret's eyes shimmered with unshed tears, but it was too little, too late. The years of absence, the deliberate manipulation, they could not be erased. As I stood, clutching the folder to my chest, a strange calm settled over me. I had navigated grief, betrayal, and deception. I had protected my daughter's legacy, honored her life, and exposed the darkness hidden within my own family. Angela was there, standing quietly at the edge of the room, her hand brushing mine. A simple gesture, but one that reminded me that family isn't always defined by blood, it's defined by love, loyalty, and courage. Later, as I walked out of the office into the crisp afternoon air, I felt a mixture of exhaustion and empowerment. I had won this battle, but the lessons were bitter. Trust is fragile, love is tested, and some betrayals leave scars that never fully fade. Yet, in the midst of lingering grief, I felt hope. Not because my family had changed, but because I had the strength to protect what mattered. Lily's legacy, her dreams, her life's promise, they remained untouchable. I pressed my hand to the envelope, feeling the weight of truth and love combined. I whispered softly, as if Lily could hear me, "I did it, sweetheart. I protected your future. Your memory, your dreams, they live on." And even as shadows of betrayal lingered, I knew one thing with certainty: some battles are fought in silence, some in courtrooms, but all are won when love is stronger than greed. As I drove home, I felt a spark of peace. The war was over, but the lessons remained. And in those lessons, I found strength, resilience, and the courage to face whatever darkness might come next. Because protecting the ones you love is never optional. It's inevitable, relentless, and worth every ounce of your heart. Before the sun set, I picked up my phone and texted Angela, "Thank you for everything. I couldn't have done this without you." Her reply came almost instantly, "You were never alone, Emily. You never will be." I smiled, tears blurring my vision, as I realized, Lily's legacy wasn't just money or documents. It was the love, courage, and truth we carried forward. And that, no one could ever steal. If this story moved you, like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to Revo Tales. Every story is a reminder: love, courage, and truth endure, even in the face of betrayal.